Viewers of this program know that I care deeply about the state of California. I spent most of my life there. I raised my children there, but all Americans should care about California. It's got our largest population, and California has always represented sort of the American dream. I know they call it the Golden State and the California dream, but the California dream is the American dream. How many stories have we seen about people going to that amazing state with nothing in their pocket and reaching their fullest potential? Because California has a history of encouraging entrepreneurship and visionaries to be able to, well, make miracles happen. That's what California has always represented. In the last couple of decades, it's been the opposite. It's horrible and it needs to be changed. People always ask me, when will we get a good governor back in California again? When will a Republican win again? And I always say the same thing. When it gets so bad that Californians recognize that they have to make a change. This could be the year it finally happens. One of the candidates who wants to be governor of California joins us right now. He is Leo Zaki, and anyone who knows California knows the name Zaki. I think I used to buy your turkeys for Thanksgiving, Mr. Zaki. Thanks for joining us. Zaki Farms. Everyone loves Zaki Farms.
That's right. And I'm sure you did. I mean, we've been on everybody's Thanksgiving dinner plate. We've been in your hot dog buns. We've been on your, just your dinner plate or wherever at any restaurant. We were huge here in California. In fact, the largest poultry producers on the West Coast.
Well, and in fact, I think your experience with your business, with your family business that I believe you handed down for multiple generations, and what ended up happening with the regulations in California and just the economic downturn, I think it's a great allegory to what's broken. I think that that's what makes your perspective on how to fix California resonate that much more. So why don't you talk us through, from your perspective, what's wrong with California?
Well, where do you begin? I mean, the real problem starts obviously at leadership. And having been in that business background, I mean, leadership is really where it all starts. If you don't have people that are competent and caring and really just want to do the right thing in those positions, then everybody else beneath them are going to take note and say, well, they're not showing up on time. They're not putting their best foot forward. They're taking advantage of the system. So can I. So that brings all the problems that come with it. But we have drought and homelessness and crime and corruption. Our education's in the toilet. But people in California know what the problems are. They just don't know what the solutions are. And that's the difference between me and everybody else in this race, is that I actually have common sense solutions for everybody in California to turn those problems into net revenue generators.
Well, let's talk through some of the problems. I think one of the most shining examples of what's been broken and failed policies repeated over and over again that just lead to more of the same problem is the homelessness crisis. Gavin Newsom and his party, they've been promising the solution to this with more money, more taxes, more plans, more building, more state-run solutions, and ultimately it just keeps getting worse and worse. How would you approach this problem?
Yeah, Gavin's been promising changes to homeless and fixing the homeless problem since he was in San Francisco as their mayor, even city council. My solution is simple. It's I call it homeless to home, where we actually enforce our vagrancy laws and we focus instead on housing first, on actual treatment, because it's a mental health crisis compounded by a drug epidemic, exacerbated by a failed education system. So enforcing our vagrancy laws and removing them from the public spaces that they're occupying, it is the best thing that we can do. But we have to get them into a program that's going to help them. And so don't send them to jail, send them to a functional, constructive rehab where they can get the help. So mental health treatment and medical care and drug rehab treatment. And then while they're undergoing the treatment, they can receive a job skill while they're learning all this stuff and getting the help they need. So they'll have a small modular tiny home. I found a company that produces them for $2,000 a unit. We can pay it off at $75 a month for 27 months. Wow. And so they'll earn a living wage while they do the work while getting the treatment. And we don't have to spend tens of millions of dollars building brick and mortar facilities, because we have probably 250,000 homeless here in the state of California. So they learn a job skill, and it'll be in things like construction, where they'll help us build the water infrastructure that we need for my water abundance project. They'll do sanitation, cleaning up our public spaces, our tourist traps like Hollywood Boulevard and the Wharf in San Francisco, and even just our highways in general. They'll do agriculture work, raising crops, which we can then turn around and sell to offset these expenses. whether it's table grades that you can sell to places like Erewhon or Whole Foods as an organic feel good product, or just even as feedlot or exporting it. And then you have them doing basic wildlife management
Yeah.
and forestry, where we can have them clear our underbrush out, which will save us billions of dollars on the balance sheet elsewhere, so we don't have to fight these awful fires that are always out of control. So they get their mental health under control, their drug habit under control. They get money in the bank. They get, like I
And
said, the job skill, and then they're eligible.
and they
The
actually do
government assistance
something to
program.
contribute to the state that is doing all of this for
Correct.
them and providing them they're doing functions and work that needs to get done. See,
Correct.
and by the way, Mr. Zaki, you begin with enforce our criminal vagrancy laws. I mean, that's such a basic thing that has been ignored in these jurisdictions across the state. And the way you lay it out, it seems to make logical sense. And there are other places. I remember City of New York, Rudy Giuliani sort of put a very similar plan in place there, and they did solve the problem in the 90s in New York. So it's not like these ideas that you just laid out haven't been tried. So what's the resistance? What's in it for Democrats? What's in it for Gavin Newsom to continue these failed policies?
You know, I don't really understand. I think they just need the chaos,
Huh?
order out of chaos in a sort of a way, right? You know, they if they fix the problems, right, then all the bureaucrats and all the other people that I guess sustain their existence off of the corruption aren't there. How can they spend $25 billion on homelessness if there isn't a homeless crisis? And there's all these appointed positions that just go totally unchecked. There's no checks and balances in these things,
Right.
and we wonder where all this money goes when we wind up with 50% more homeless after the fact.
And yet people are literally getting rich off of this crisis. See, I wanted to lead with that issue, Leo Zaki, because I love sort of grabbing our viewers and our listeners' attention by letting them know here's a candidate who can look at what appears to be an insurmountable problem in the state of California. And here's the solution: A, B, C, D, E, and this is how you get it done. Let's take a half step back now and sort of formally introduce you to everybody. You're the vice president of Zaki Farms, former board member of the California Poultry Federation, and co-owner, by the way, of an organization called Asteria. This is plastic waste conversion, which sounds cutting edge and something that I really want to hear more about. Uh, Talk to me a little bit about your experience in the business world, being a Californian your entire life, and how all of that is going to apply to your candidacy. What is it you're bringing to the table that no other candidate can bring?
Well, sure. I mean, with Zaki Farms, I've spent my life in the agriculture industry. I mean, agriculture is the number one source of revenue for the state of California.
Hmm.
Sorry, Hollywood, and sorry, big tech. That's what it
All right,
is. I
Mickey
mean, we're the
Mouse.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the big driver of industry in California in revenue. And I was a board member for the California Poultry Federation, so I spent a decade doing that, going to DC, going to Sacramento, meeting with our elected officials, meeting with the bureaucrats, senators, congressmen, FDA, USDA, EPA, all that. And I quickly learned that they're very stupid and they don't care about you or your business or your family, but they really love being wined and dined. So that is a big issue. And I know how to deal with them and I know what the problem is. And we need to totally change that. But also, having been in the restaurant business as well, my family had an Italian restaurant, and I know all the struggles and difficulties of that, dealing with commercial real estate. Also startups, being involved in startups and environmental tech companies like you mentioned with Astera, and also Creative Integration Labs, where we do protein replication. So um, having these understanding of all these different types of industries that are would thrive certainly here in California, make a big difference. I mean, you have to know how to run a business because California has now become, government in general has become a service-based industry. And the sad reality is that our only revenue stream comes from taxation. So we have to divest and diversify our portfolio here in California to achieve new sources of revenue so we can bring taxes way down. Hopefully, I'd love to eliminate them. I mean, that's what this country was founded on, was no taxation without representation. So I would love for us to get to that point, and I have detailed plans to get us there, because anything you want to do in business, like some sort of idea you have, some venture,
Yeah.
it has to have a means of covering its fees. And that's exactly what I've developed here.
As you know, a lot of Californians over the last several years have left the Golden State. They've gone to other places. A lot of them go to Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. And I've got friends who lived in California their whole lives. They now live in one of those three states. And those states have zero income taxes, Leo Zaki. And they're like, why can't California do this? How is it possible that Florida, with just a diverse population, not quite as big a population, but a pretty big population, with all the state resources and obligations that they have, somehow they're able to get it done with zero income taxes? Connect these dots for us, because I don't understand why California has gone so far in the other direction with the highest taxes in the country.
Well, it's because we've become a nanny state here in California. It's all these safety nets that are in place. And I wouldn't necessarily call them all safety nets. I mean, yes, I do believe that we should have some base level of help for our
Sure, for
citizens
actual
at
people
some
who
level.
are living in poverty, who really need desperate help. Sure.
Right. But when you spend over $12 billion a year on illegal immigrants, not illegal aliens, that's what they are. They're here illegally as aliens.
Yeah.
That's a big problem right there. And then all the other just fluff and waste and all this bureaucratic mess. I mean, California has its own EPA. That's the Cal EPA that's completely separate from the federal EPA. And so it's all this like redundancy that's unnecessary that is hurting the state, and it's the lack of actually properly spending. But it's more than that. It's also the reactionary factor of our government. There's never a proactive measure that's put in place to actually plan for the future. They always say we're in this perpetual state of drought. Well, you could have gone to Mammoth Mountain this year and snowboarded into July, and last year you could have done it into August. But we don't build the infrastructure to harness those things. We focus on waste, on green energy nonsense that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when you have tried and true, I mean, our utility costs are high. Industry doesn't want to be here. They flee. Think about it. Chevron's packed up and left. Oracle packed up and left. Tesla left. 99-cent stores have gone out of business. My family went out of business. In-N-Out Burger left. These are huge employers. And Hollywood's dying, if not almost completely dead. And we have to revitalize Hollywood with tax credits to get them back here, but also just bring the taxes down.
See, Gavin Newsom will hear you say that, and he'll slick back his hair and he'll put on that big grin and say, "We have the fifth largest economy in the world. Nothing's wrong here. No one's leaving here. And if people leave, well, we've got new industries coming in." Is he just whistling past the graveyard with that?
Of course. I mean, it's always just lies from them. And especially Gavin. My God, he's the most untrustworthy person out there. He's got a noticeable lack for a trail of destruction everywhere he's been, from starting out in San Francisco to now the wave of destruction he's left across the entire state of California.
Hmm. Let's talk about a real world situation that all of America, all of the world witnessed earlier this year, and that was the devastating fires in Southern California. The Pacific Palisades basically destroyed. Most of Altadena also. Altadena doesn't get as much attention because it's more of a middle class neighborhood, upper middle class neighborhood, but absolutely devastating. I had friends and family who lived there. The fires were there. First of all, number one, the cause of the fires and the fact that there was no water in the reservoir and the Palisades to be able to mitigate and fight those fires, lack of planning there. But secondly, Leo Zaki, you look at the Palisades right now, I don't think one home has even begun reconstruction 9 months later. So talk about that as a problem that is demanding a solution.
Larry, you're right. I mean, it's really a shame that Altadena doesn't get any attention. And I have a friend, Ken Charles. He's a fantastic musician. Had a home business totally wiped out in Altadena. I have friends who've lost multiple properties in the Palisades fire, and I live right by there. I lost power during this whole thing, and it's scary. I've had to go through too many of these fires here in the Sepulveda Pass. It breaks my heart that people have lost their homes like this. There are a couple of homes that are being rebuilt where you're starting to see the framing go up. But
Couple.
I mean, I'm talking about like a handful over when you're talking about what 10,000 properties that have been destroyed. I mean, I can get in the car and drive 5 minutes and I'm already in that destructed fire zone.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. I grew up hanging out there. The permitting process, the CEQA nonsense, the Coastal Commission, the state getting in the way. I mean, I've heard horror stories of people being charged $250,000 just to clear their lots.
Leo, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but I lived in LA in the 90s for the Northridge quake. And
I remember that one. Yeah.
Governor Wilson and Mayor Reardon, it was a unicorn moment where you had a Republican in Sacramento and in the mayor's office in LA. They suspended most of the permitting processes, the no bid contracts, all that stuff. They gave incentives. We had downed expressways, overpasses like the 10 over by Fairfax Boulevard. They had that repaired in 30 days after that
Yeah.
earthquake.
Well, they had incentives. The 118 overpass
Right.
collapsed, the 14 interchange collapsed. And so what they did is they went out to these companies and said, we need to get this working. And so they said, you have 120 days to get it operational. And for every day you complete it early, there's a financial incentive there.
Brilliant.
Well, they got them up and running in less than 90 days. But that's how you get it done. You have to have the ability to bring in outside people to get these bids, to do the work, and that competition breeds excellence. You see that in getting better contracts for infrastructure building. You see that with education. You see that with everything across the board. Competition breeds excellence, and that's exactly what we don't have going on in California.
All right, listen, I love talking about policy all the time and solving the
Yeah.
problems and getting solutions, and obviously you can speak to those things. But we got to talk about the real politics of this. Most people think that California is done in terms of actually having any kind of political competition. It's a one-party state, one-party rule, and anyone other than the next anointed Democrat doesn't have a chance. So what is your political strategy here in actually bringing victory?
Well, it's about showing people a way forward and a plan forward. As I mentioned earlier, everybody knows what's wrong with the state. And it's just about how do we get out of this mess. And so I'm not here to be the Republican governor for exclusively Republicans. I'm here to be the governor for all Californians so that we can get the legislature working together. I want to bridge the gap with the legislature when I'm elected and actually work together, because we have to remember that whatever decisions get made there affect all of us. This is about Team California. So we need to have real solutions, and that's what I have. Like for example, like the water. That's the biggest issue we have in the state.
Yeah, you mentioned Mammoth and the snow cap and everything. But let's talk about the drought, because it's frustrating when you see these record storms and mudslides and all of this rain, and then you find out that nothing was done to capture that rain and save it for a non-rainy day when the drought comes.
Right. I mean, our population's doubled in the last 50 years, but we haven't built any significant water infrastructure. And we have all this wonderful mountains of the Sierra Nevadas, these canyons and ravines, but we're not damming them up. We don't have brand new reservoirs throughout the state to capture the rainwater. In fact, Newsom is destroying dams on the Klamath River. We lose hydroelectric generation, we lose water storage. These are big deals. And then we dump billions of gallons into the ocean for the Sacramento River smelt, which, by the way, is exclusively now being raised in captivity at UC Davis and released. Can't even find it measurably in the wild. They are cutting our farmers off from water, and 7,000 farmers are now recently going without water in Northern California, where some of them have pear trees that are 110 years old. They're going to die. They don't understand how the agriculture works. It's not a switch. You don't just turn it on, turn it off. It's not a factory like that. So build reservoirs, capture the snowpack, capture the rainwater, build the dams, dam up our concreted rivers in our metropolitan areas. It's water storage we're not utilizing properly. Just stagger a bunch of dams in there, build purification plants, but then get our desal going and power them with small modular nuclear reactors. So we have an abundance of water, an abundance of energy. They become very cheap. Then farmers have more access to that. I mean, our farmers in the Central Valley are limited to 1.65 cubic feet per acre. You need 2.25 cubic feet for citrus. You need 4.5 cubic feet for almonds. And then when we have this abundance, we can turn around and export the water by auctioning off the Colorado River shed for profit to our neighbors like Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. So we can bring money in that way because the Colorado River runs all through those states.
You'd actually be a
into
supplier
Mexico.
of water instead of being desperately in drought mode.
Absolutely. I mean, it's resource mismanagement here. That's what causes the fires. When you don't clear out the invasive bark beetle, when you don't manage your forests, those cause devastating fires. That's billions of dollars there. We have oil that we can extract here in California that can generate $80 billion a year in revenue, create over 100,000 permanent real jobs, not fake government. Let's fudge the numbers jobs. There's so many reasons and ways that we can bring money into the state.
All right,
and I've got them. I've figured it out.
Let's turn to the other major crisis in California. There's a lot of them, but I think the other one is the law and order issue and the fact that criminals are allowed to well, basically shoplift, break the law. They're right back on the streets if the police are even motivated to catch them. But they know there's a revolving door there with lack of prosecutions and with all of the policies that have emptied the jails and put in so-called criminal justice reform in place. How much of that, as governor, can you reverse and actually bring back a regular sense of law and order so that people feel safe in the streets and small business owners can be protected from the devastation of the theft and robbery and crime that they've had to deal with? Does the governor have enough power and influence to be able to turn that ship around?
Yeah, and the one thing that the sheriffs tell me constantly is that Gavin Newsom never meets with them, doesn't want to work with them, and I want to empower the sheriffs to actually go and make sure that they can get law and order in place. But really, the best way, Larry, to stop crime is to have a strong economy, and on top of that, a good education system. Because if you have a bunch of people that are coming out of school, a bunch of kids graduating from high school or whatever, and they don't have skills, then it's hard for them to find employment, but it's even more so difficult when you disincentivize businesses from even being able to set up shop here in California and you're driving them out. So if you don't have a place where people can get employment, and then if they were eligible for or able to get employment, they're not eligible because of their education, that's a problem. But I want the police to have the tools to go and enforce the law, but make sure that when they actually get the criminals, that they keep them in jail. But more importantly, it's also the judges. The judges are a big issue. So if how the police officers are really not protected when they go and they can get sued by the people that they arrest, which is, I think, a big problem.
Yeah.
That if you took those immunity protections away from judges when it comes to releasing criminals, that would be a whole nother thing. And Gavin Newsom has been redefining what a violent offense is. Did you know that in California, that if you rape somebody while they're sober, that's a violent crime. But if you rape them while they're drugged and passed out, it's no longer a violent offense. And they're releasing prisoners like that. They're shutting down their prisons. That's unacceptable.
Absolutely.
I think we need to put prisoners to work. They need to be doing something constructive instead of just enjoying 3 hots and a cot in the best workout session of their life. They need to really I want to put them to work and helping the homeless population plan that I have and help getting them to work, but they'll just earn prison wages as opposed to living wages.
Yeah, and clean up all of the garbage that have been left by the criminal vagrants in Hollywood and Los Angeles. All of the
You have to have deterrence.
Despicable. Leo Zaki, there's so much to uncover in California. It's a big state with a lot of big problems, and I think we scratched the surface on a lot of them. I'm going to go to your website. I see it on your sign there, leozaki.com. I've already checked it out earlier. You've got a lot of policy ideas, and also you can sign up for a newsletter so you can keep getting people alerts, right?
Of course, yeah. And then, social media is a great place to follow me, at Leo S. Zaki on Instagram and X and TikTok.
Excellent.
Those are the best places to get a hold of me. You can always DM me on there. So I'm very reachable. I'm not above anybody. I don't need this job. I'm a regular guy. I play ice hockey. I snowboard. I got a lot of friends.
Hold on.
Enjoy
Ice
life.
hockey in California? Wow.
You better believe it. Go Kings, go.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I keep making fun of Canada, actually. I'm in Montreal right now, and it'll never not be funny that Las Vegas has won a Stanley Cup more recently than anyone in Canada. It's brilliant. All right, leozaki.com. Anyone who's watching or listening, you need to care about California. I know you do. And by the way, we have a huge viewership in California on our video platforms. Go to that website, get more information about Leo Zaki. Now is the time to start building momentum for next year's election, because there's got to be solutions down the road. We cannot write off California. It's too good a state not to be fixed. We got to keep trying. Leo Zaki, let's have this be the beginning of some more conversations, because obviously you've thought about this stuff. Seems like you've got some solutions, and that's what we're all about over here. We want to fix problems, not just complain about them. It's about to use a bad word, but I don't want to associate you with that. Thanks, Leo.
Thanks, Larry. I appreciate it.
That is so cool. I want to fix California. I think there's a lot of good people who want to do that, and it starts by making a U-turn politically in that state. Enough is enough. I'm old enough to remember when we had some good leadership in that state, and we can get back there again.